Hey guys, it's Carrie123POP, and for today's video I'm going to be doing the eyeshadow palette challenge. At least I think that's what it's called. I'm not sure of the official name, but this is something that was started by Allie, Glines and Samantha March, and if you guys really want to check them out, I'll leave their videos in the description. And I'm a big fan of both of them, and when they did this challenge I enjoyed watching it so much. I've been on a binge of watching these types of eyeshadow palette videos, and so I thought, why not try it out for myself. So let's get to the video. So the first category is the newest eyeshadow palette. Also, if I do look down, it's because I had to write out the categories because I have the memory of a goldfish. But anyway, so these palettes aren't exactly new to the market. They're just the ones I recently purchased. So the first is the ABH and Jackie Aina palette. And the second is the James Charles and Morphe palette. So the next category is the oldest eyeshadow palette, and this is my oldest eyeshadow palette, and it's been through a lot. It's from the Fushini makeup range, and it's the Naturally Nice palette. Now this palette's only maybe 5 years old, 5 or 4 years old. I've only recently got into makeup, I think, actually where previously I would only really use my mom's lipstick or mascara or something, but I only actually got into makeup when I wanted to buy my own, maybe at the end of matric or the beginning of first year of university. So although I did have this palette for quite a while, but I only started using it maybe 3 years ago, but it has been loved. So the next category is the most expensive palette, so that would be my Jackie Aina and ABH palette. So this palette, I think it is $48, but I paid 1,200 Rand for it. I get a lot of my international makeup from Muse Beauty. The prices are a bit higher than if you would convert the original prices from dollars to Rand, but that's just because it includes your shipping, taxes and customs. And I just find that a bit more reassuring to know that's the final price I'm gonna pay than if you would buy from an international site and then you only find out what you're gonna have to pay when it's here, and then it could be 2 or 3 times more than what you paid for the actual product. So if anyone who does want to buy things from international brands that we don't get in South Africa, I would highly recommend Muse Beauty. Next is the most affordable palette, and that would be my palette from the Fushini Beauty line. This palette is only 45 Rand, and I think it is really worth it because you get 12 shadows in this, and these shadows are really good. They're not the most pigmented, but they do blend very well, and you do get a good variety in terms of you get 1 row of mattes and 1 row of shimmers. And I also think it's a really good starter palette, so if you're only just starting out in makeup and you don't want to spend as much, you just want to kind of get a feel and see maybe what type of colors you like or formulas, I would definitely recommend this palette. So the next category is an everyday palette, and I would have to say it is the Makeup Revolution Pretty Incredible palette. Now this palette, I don't know if you can see it, but we have gotten our use out of this, and by we I mean my mom and I. My mom does wear makeup every day for work, so she always uses this palette. And on the days where I do feel like wearing makeup to university, I tend to reach for this palette quite often. I generally use these 2 kind of orangey peachy shades at the top. And I was very surprised because this palette is very pigmented, but it's also very affordable. So I would also highly recommend this palette. The next category is the most colorful palette, and I'm definitely a person who tends to stick with the more neutral colors or maybe just the pops of pink now and then. So I kind of only have one palette that's very colorful, and that would be the James Charles and Morphe palette. I mean, the last 2 rows are basically like a rainbow. The next category is the smallest eyeshadow palette. So I have 2 here, which I wasn't too sure which one to use for this category, so I'm just gonna show you guys both. So the first one is this Inglot Free Systems eyeshadow palette, and I have the one where you have space for 2 pans. So if I had to choose one according to how many pans in the eyeshadow palette, it would definitely be this one. But I also have this cute little mini eyeshadow palette from Estee Lauder, which came as a free gift in a little gift bag. And so if you look at this, there are 4 pans here, but the size of them are very small. I think if you put all 4 together, you'll get 1 pan size from the Inglot palette. So in terms of the pan size, this one's the smallest, but in terms of the number of pans, the Inglot one is the smallest. So the next category is the biggest eyeshadow palette, and for a lot of people who've done this challenge, it's generally a Morphe palette, and I am no different. My biggest eyeshadow palette is my James Charles and Morphe palette, and just to give like a little reference, so this is the size of the Morphe compared to the Inkot one, and let me get an average size, and then compared to the Jackie Aina palette, it's that big. So the next category is the palette with the best memory, and to be completely honest, I don't really have any standout memories from any of my eyeshadow palettes with using the palette itself. So I thought I would base the decision on how I got the palette, and from that, my eyeshadow palette with the best memory is the one from Sephora. It is the Feline Instinct palette, the gold edition, and this palette is really special to me in terms of how I got it, because it was actually a gift from my best friend. And you may think, oh, it's just like a gift from my best friend, but my best friend and I, we live on opposite ends of the country. We did go to high school together, but then for university I moved, and so we talk a lot and we have a lot of phone calls and stuff, but we hadn't seen each other in quite a while, and like this palette just kind of reminds me of like when we reunited after like so long. So yeah, that's why it's my best memory. So the next category is an eyeshadow palette that is worth the hype, and for this it is the Urban Decay Naked 2 palette, and unfortunately I don't have the palette with me anymore. It did get dropped, and it did not survive the fall. It was very tragic. But before I got the palette, I did a lot of research, like I looked at reviews and things like that, and then I remember there was this blog, and I can't remember the name, but they were saying eyeshadow palettes that are very flattering for Indian skin tones, and the Naked 2 palette was very popular on this blog, and a lot of comments said that it was really good and a lot of people recommended it. So I decided to get it, and when I did have it, I really enjoyed it, and I definitely think it was worth all the hype. For the next category, it is the eyeshadow palette that is not worth the hype, and for this eyeshadow palette, I chose it more on like kind of my own hype that I had for it, not so much like in general. And so it is the Rimmel, what is your name? Magnifies Eyes Smoke Edition. Now the reason why I was so disappointed in this is because Rimmel was actually like the first kind of makeup I was introduced to. I would always use their mascaras, and there was this like little, like, I want to call it like a highlight, bronzer, like blush type trio thing that like you were supposed to swipe all 3 colors and then just apply it on your face, and like it just looked so good. And like it was like the first makeup brand that I ever really knew and I really liked. And so like I had big hopes for this palette because all the other products that I tried before were really good, but like the shades in this palette are kind of chalky and there's not much pigment, and like I had really like big hopes for the black shade in this palette because it is a smoky eye palette, but it was like kind of like, how do I explain it, just like very powdery but transparent. Like you put it on and you see all this powder and you're like, okay, maybe there's gonna be a lot of like pigment, and then it's like, did I even put it on? So yeah, I was really disappointed in this. The other palettes are really nice, but like this one just really let me down. The next category is a favorite palette from a favorite brand. So in terms of eyeshadow, I definitely think ABH is one of my favorite brands. So for this, I picked the Modern Renaissance palette from ABH, and this palette needs no introduction. I really love this palette, and I really love the warm tones it has as well as the pops of pinks that it has. And I do gravitate more towards these colors, so definitely so far this is my favorite eyeshadow palette from I think all of my palettes. I haven't tried the James Charles one or the Jackie Aina one yet, but so far it is this little guy. So the last category is the most used palette. So I would definitely say that overall my most used palette would be the one from the Muse Beauty line. I mean, this little guy has been with me from the beginning of my makeup journey, and like I think I'll always hold on to him just for sentimental value. I won't really use them again just because like they expire. But I think recently the one I've used the most would definitely be the Modern Renaissance palette. And I think also this guy I also think he's gonna go pretty strong, you know, with me on my makeup journey, because I really tend to grab this palette a lot. So yeah, I think he may just replace my old little buddy. So that is the end of this eyeshadow palette challenge, and I hope everybody is staying well and safe, and I hope you guys liked the video, and if you did, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Okay, bye!